I was stirring a pot of chicken soup in my small kitchen when I heard the thud. A heavy, sickening crash echoed from the stairwell. My heart jumped into my throat. I dropped the wooden spoon, splattering broth across the counter, and ran toward the sound. At the bottom of the stairs lay Amber, my son's wife. Her long blonde hair spilled across the tile, and her hands clutched her belly like she was cradling something fragile. Her face was twisted in pain, but her eyes darted to me with something that didn't match the panic on her lips. "What happened?" I gasped, kneeling beside her. She whimpered and squeezed her eyes shut. You pushed me, Linda?" Her voice was faint but loud enough for the words to sting my ears. "You shoved me down the stairs." I froze. My palms hovered over her without touching. "What? Amber, no! I heard a noise and came running. I didn't even—" The front door banged open. My son, Marcus, rushed inside, dropping his keys. "Amber!" he yelled, sprinting to her side. "She pushed me," Amber whispered, pointing a trembling finger at me, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I was just coming down to get some tea and she snapped. She shoved me." Marcus turned to me with a look I'd never seen on his face before. Suspicion mixed with anger. "Mom, tell me you didn't." "Marcus, I didn't," I said, my voice breaking. "I would never—" But he was already lifting Amber gently, his focus entirely on her. "Don't talk, baby. I'm taking you to the hospital." He glanced at me once more, his eyes hard, then carried her out to the car. I stood in the doorway, trembling, watching the taillights disappear. The smell of chicken soup clung to my clothes, nauseating and heavy. My own son believed his wife over me, and as I stood there, staring at the empty driveway, I knew this wasn't an accident. Amber had planned this. The house felt unbearably quiet after they left. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock, each second dragging like a weight on my chest. I sank into the living room sofa, my hands still trembling, soup stains cooling on my sleeves. I kept replaying Amber's words in my mind, her accusing finger, the way Marcus had looked at me, as if I was suddenly the enemy in my own home. I tried calling him that night, just to hear his voice, to plead my case, but every call went straight to voicemail. I left messages, calm at first, then desperate, and finally, raw with anger. Nothing. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the untouched pot of soup. My phone buzzed. I thought it might be Marcus finally returning my call, but it was Amber. She texted a photo of her bruised arm. "See what you did?" My stomach churned. She was relentless. Even injured, she was manipulating everything. The thought that she could truly turn my son against me made my chest tighten. I had raised him, loved him, and now his trust was a fragile thing I could feel slipping through my fingers. I remembered the first time I met her, how polite, charming, how she smiled in a way that made me lower my guard. I never suspected the storm hidden behind that smile, but now the pieces clicked in my mind. The way she subtly criticized me at dinner parties, the little digs she made whenever Marcus wasn't around, it had all been preparation. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. Fear and anger swirled inside me, but something else rose up. Resolve. She thought she had won. She thought she could make me powerless in my own son's eyes, but she underestimated me. Tomorrow, I would see Marcus. I would face him. I would find a way to make him see the truth. Amber's act of manipulation had lit a fire I wasn't willing to let burn me down, and I knew I would make her regret ever trying to frame me. The next morning, I drove to Marcus's apartment, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. My reflection in the rearview mirror stared back at me, tired eyes, tense jaw, but a resolve I hadn't felt in years. I had to make him see somehow. Marcus opened the door before I even knocked. His eyes were guarded, his arms crossed like a shield. "Mom," he said cautiously, "are you here to talk?" "Yes," I said firmly. "We need to talk." Amber sat on the couch, her arm in a sling, a fake limp in her step. She smiled sweetly when she saw me. "Linda, come on in," she said, her tone syrupy. "I didn't want you to worry, but Marcus insists I stay off my feet." I ignored her and focused on Marcus. "I know what happened, Marcus. I know Amber pushed herself down those stairs. He blinked, confusion flickering in his gaze. Mom, what are you talking about? She fell. No! I leaned in, lowering my voice. I know her, Marcus. I raised you. She's playing you. She wants to isolate you from me. Look at the bruises. Amber didn't get hurt falling by accident. She staged it. Every detail, the scream, the timing, the pointing at me, it's all calculated. Amber's sweet smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but she covered it instantly. Mom, you're imagining things. Marcus rubbed his forehead. I don't know what to think. His voice trailed off. The conflict in his eyes was like a knife twisting in my chest. I stepped closer, my hands trembling but my voice steady. I'm not lying. I would never hurt her. I love you too much to do that. You have to see it before it's too late. Silence fell heavy between us. Amber's fake cough was the only sound. I could feel her smugness like a shadow in the room. But Marcus looked at me, really looked, and I caught a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The first crack in the armor of lies. I knew the real battle had just begun. Over the next few days, the tension was unbearable. Every text from Marcus was short, clipped, almost formal, and every social media post from Amber was full of innocent smiling selfies that screamed manipulation. But something was shifting. I started noticing little inconsistencies. Amber's bruises didn't match the fall she claimed. One bruise was too high, another too clean-edged, like someone had placed it there. And the way she flinched when I entered a room felt rehearsed, calculated. My heart raced every time I found another piece of evidence. It was like gathering bullets for a silent war. One evening, Marcus called. His voice was quieter than usual. Mom, can we talk? I could barely contain my hope. Of course, baby, when? Tonight. Just come over. Alone. My stomach twisted. Something in his tone told me Amber didn't know about this meeting. I drove over, nerves coiling around my chest like barbed wire. Marcus opened the door, his eyes hesitant. I've been thinking about what you said. You believe me? I asked softly, holding my breath. I don't know yet, he admitted. I want to, but I need proof. Something real. I can't just ignore what she said either. I nodded, understanding the weight of his conflict. I'll show you. Just give me a chance. As we sat at the kitchen table, I began recounting small moments Amber had tried to manipulate, the subtle lies that didn't make sense when you looked closely. Marcus listened, eyes narrowing, his mind racing. For the first time since the stairs, I saw the doubt start to settle in his gaze. The seed was planted. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, carrying with it the promise of a reckoning. Amber had made a mistake. She underestimated the bond between mother and son, the bond that no lie could fully sever. And I knew, deep down, the truth would surface. I knew Amber would get careless. She always did when she thought she was untouchable. I needed evidence, something undeniable. The next morning I called Marcus. Meet me at the cafe downtown. I have something you need to see. His voice was cautious, but he agreed. At the cafe, I pulled out my phone and showed him the video I'd secretly captured the night she fell. I had been checking security footage from the side entrance, the one no one normally noticed. There she was, clearly crouching on the top step, positioning herself, and then deliberately rolling down in a way that would make it look like an accident. Every movement calculated, every expression theatrical. Marcus leaned back, jaw tight. I can't believe this. She wanted you to hate me, Marcus. She wanted to drive a wedge between us, but look at what she's done. My voice shook with a mix of anger and relief. This isn't imagination. This isn't suspicion. It's proof. He stared at the screen, silent for a long moment. Then he looked up at me, eyes wet. I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have listened sooner. I didn't see it. I know, I whispered. It's not too late to fix this, but we have to be careful. She'll try to manipulate again if she senses we know. Marcus nodded, determination hardening his features. We'll handle it together. I'll confront her with the proof. She won't get away with this. For the first time since the stairs, I felt a spark of hope. Amber had thrown herself into the drama to frame me, but she hadn't counted on me noticing the smallest details, on me taking action quietly, on Marcus eventually seeing the truth. The next step would be confrontation, and this time, the truth would strike like lightning. That evening, Marcus and I arrived at their apartment together. The air between us was tense but electric, a mix of anticipation and righteous anger. I stayed back as Marcus knocked on the door, holding the phone with the video ready to play. Amber opened the door, her smile dripping with false sweetness. "Oh, you're back so soon. I was just resting." Marcus held up the phone. "Amber, we need to talk. Now." Her eyes flicked to the screen, curiosity mixed with annoyance. "What is that?" Marcus pressed play. The video rolled, showing her deliberate fall from the stairs, the way she positioned herself perfectly, the way she grimaced to look like real pain. Amber's lips parted in shock, then narrowed. That doesn't prove anything," she spat, her voice shaky. "I fell. It's an accident." I stepped forward, calm but firm. "Amber, we've watched it. We know exactly what you did. You can't lie your way out of this anymore." Her face twisted, panic creeping in. She tried to step past Marcus to grab the phone, but he blocked her. The control she had wielded for weeks was gone. She was exposed. I just wanted..." Amber stammered, but no words came out right. Marcus's voice was steady, sharp with authority. "You tried to turn me against my own mother, against me. That ends now." Amber sank onto the couch, defeated. For the first time, her mask of innocence shattered completely, and I realized something profound. She had never truly had power over us. The truth always finds a way. As I looked at Marcus, I saw gratitude and relief. The storm of lies was over, and we were finally on the same side again. The days after the confrontation were tense, but they were different, no longer filled with manipulation or fear, but with the weight of consequences. Amber retreated into herself, avoiding any real conversation, as if the walls of her carefully constructed lies were finally crumbling around her. Marcus and I spent hours piecing together what had happened over the past weeks. We went over every detail, every subtle interaction that now made sense in the cold light of truth. I realized just how cunning Amber had been, how she had isolated Marcus from me, slowly, insidiously, making herself the center of his world while painting me as the villain. But even the cleverest manipulation can't withstand evidence and patience, and we had both in abundance. Marcus decided it was time to confront Amber directly, not with threats, but with consequences. He had contacted her employer, carefully presenting the evidence, showing them how she had lied about the injury and manipulated events. The reaction was immediate. A formal investigation began, and she was suspended pending the results. At home, Marcus and I worked to restore our relationship, piece by fragile piece. We cooked together, laughed at old inside jokes, and talked late into the night about things we hadn't said for too long. The trust that Amber had tried to destroy was fragile, but it was mending, strengthened by truth and shared experience. I still felt a simmering anger whenever I thought of Amber, but it was no longer a consuming fear. Instead, it was a quiet reminder of how careful one must be and how vital it is to stand firm in the face of deceit. Then came the day of reckoning in person. Amber's attempt to isolate us had failed, and she knew it. She arrived at the apartment smug at first, thinking she could charm her way back into control. But we were ready. Marcus stayed calm, presenting every piece of evidence clearly, his voice steady, unwavering. I stood beside him, a silent pillar of truth and resilience. Amber faltered, her mask slipping. Every word she tried to spin was met with the undeniable proof on the table. Her confidence eroded, leaving her small and trapped, like a child caught in a lie she thought no one would ever see through. Finally, she slumped into a chair, silent, defeated. I could almost feel the weight of her hubris pressing down on her. And as I looked at Marcus, I saw not just relief, but pride. The pride of a son who could now see the full picture, who understood the depth of the bond between mother and child, and who would never let deception undermine it again. It was a long, emotional evening, filled with tension, silence, and finally, closure. Amber had tried to play us, but in the end, truth had the loudest voice. And in that moment, I knew we had reclaimed our lives, our family, from the shadows she had tried to cast over us. The following weeks were a slow but steady restoration of life. Marcus and I spent time rebuilding the trust Amber had tried to destroy. Every conversation, every shared meal, every small moment of laughter became a reminder that deception could not prevail when honesty and love were stronger. Amber's suspension became permanent. Her lies, now fully documented, reached her family and friends, shattering the image she had carefully curated. She tried to defend herself at first, but no one could ignore the evidence. It was a quiet kind of justice, not loud, not vengeful, but undeniable. At home, Marcus and I began creating new traditions to reclaim the happiness she had tried to take from us. Sunday dinners became sacred again, full of warmth, aromas of roasted chicken, and soft music in the background. We shared stories of our week, but also reflected on the storm we had survived. It was cathartic, grounding, and healing. I realized that Amber's scheme had revealed something important. Our bond was unbreakable. Lies could bend it, even strain it, but the foundation of trust built over decades remained. I felt a sense of triumph, not over Amber, but in knowing that integrity and patience had carried the day. One afternoon, Marcus pulled me aside while we were in the kitchen. "Mom," he said, his voice soft but full of conviction, "thank you for standing your ground. I was blind for a moment, but you never let me forget who I am, who we are." I smiled, tears prickling at the edges of my eyes. "I love you, Marcus. That's never going to change. And nothing, no lie, no scheme, will ever come between us again." The storm had passed. Amber's shadow loomed no longer. Life returned to a rhythm of warmth and trust, of shared moments and laughter, of family reclaimed. And in the quiet, I understood a truth deeper than anger or revenge. Victory isn't in punishment. It's in survival, in resilience, in love that endures. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. The house smelled of fresh bread. The sun poured through the windows, and I knew that the worst had passed. Amber had tried to tear us apart, but we had held firm. And in that firm holding, we had not only survived, we had won.